Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today it's time for part 2 of my 2023 reading goals, where I'm going to cover some upcoming new releases that I want to get to, some series that I want to continue and potentially finish, and also some new series that I want to try out. So in this part of my reading plans, there are a mixture of self and traditionally published titles. Most of them though are going to be the traditionally published side, because the majority of my self-pub plans fall into the 10 self-pub books that I want to read in 2023, which I've already put out a video for, and I'll link in the cards in the corner up above. With these goals though, there are still a few self-pub titles to look out for, because as you know me, I do like a nice bit of self-publish, especially with my fantasy reading. So I'm going to go through 3 lists and show off some of the books that I do have physical copies for. We'll start off with the series that I want to continue and potentially finish. Now, I'm not committing to finishing all of these because there are quite a lot of books, I think 35 in total in the course of my reading plans, if you include that self-pub list as well. And I'm not going to say that I want to finish every single one of these series, because I want to be realistic and know that I might not finish all of them because of time and quantity, but also because a lot of these I've read and enjoyed the first book, but the second book might go down a different path and I might not enjoy it as much. So we'll see how each of them goes. But I've got, I think, 7 or 8 series in this initial list. Most of them have got 2 books left that I need to get to if I want to finish the series. There's, I think, one that's got 3 books as well, but let's just get into the list. So the first one on my list is The Reborn Empire by Devin Madsen. I've got book 3, We Cry for Blood. There's also book 4, which is releasing, I think, towards the end of March 2023, so when that comes out, that'll be on my list as well, and that one is We Dream of Gods, which I'll put the nice purple cover for here. So I've really had a good time with the first 2 books in this series, and I'm looking to continue with that. There's a lot of different POVs in this one. I think book 1 was 3 first-person POV characters, and then book 5. Book 2 was 5 POV characters. So it's a bit of a different style having it in the first person, but from different points of view. But definitely the audio for book 2 that I listened to really handled that well. I don't think there's an audio for book 3, however, and of course book 4 hasn't come out yet, so I'm not planning on continuing this series on audio, even though that would be my preference given how well I received the audiobook for book 2. But this series was on my 2022 reading plan because I wanted to start the series. This time round I'm aiming to hopefully complete it, but certainly to continue. Next up we have The Last War by Mike Shackle. So I've got A Fool's Hope here, a really nice copy actually, which is signed and personalised by the author if I can get to it, with a nice bit of artwork that he drew as well of one of the characters in the book. So I've got this one, A Fool's Hope, and then the second book is Until the Last, which I have to say I'm not a big fan of the covers on these, but Until the Last is definitely my least favourite, even if it's my daughter's favourite colour rather, so I'll replace it with this one because at least this one for me is a better cover overall. So I really enjoyed this. I love the rebellion themes that you've got in here, and I'm really eager to see what we get with a continuation of that in A Fool's Hope and beyond. The third of the series I want to continue with is the first of the self-published ones. This is Pillars of Peace by Tom Dumbrell. So I've read the first book, The Look of the King. I've got book 2, which is No Place for Peace, and book 3, Where Heroes Were Born. So both of these are quite short. I think book 3 is longer than the first 2, but the books in this series are quite short as a general kind of rule. So I'm hoping that these won't take me too long. I do remember book 1 being really quite quick paced and really fast reading as well, so the writing style allowed you to keep turning the pages at a high rate. So definitely one that I'm looking forward, and I'd like to add this one to my completed series list for 2023. Next up we have The God King Chronicles by Mike Brooks. So I've got book 2 on my list for Splinter King. I really do like these UK covers, they are absolutely beautiful. If I get round to it, I've also then got book 3, which is The Godbreaker, and I'm really having a good time with this series. I say that I've only read the first book, The Black Coast, and this is one that I think might be a bit of a struggle because it is a big chunky series, and I've heard that it does kind of splinter off a little bit with the Splinter King, so I'm not sure how the storyline is going to go and if I'm going to continue enjoying it, but I really hope I am. Moving into self-pub for the next two series, I've got The War Eternal by Rob J. Hayes. So I've read the first two books. I've got book 3 and then book 4 will be coming out shortly, so I've got that one to go as well. And this is one that I will be doing on audio because I've been loving the narration for this series. So up next I've got Sins of the Mother, which is, and I did get that wrong actually because it's 3 books that I've read. I've got book 4 and then book 5 is the one that's going to be released soon. So book 4 is up next. That one is Sins of the Mother. And then I've got book 5 coming out soon, which is Death's Beating Heart. And again, I've really enjoyed this series. I love the covers on them. There's some really great atmosphere from this artwork. And it really demonstrates, it really kind of encapsulates the series quite well for what I've read so far. So definitely looking forward to this one, and it's one that I'm aiming to get completed rather than just continuing with. Then I've got one of the ones that's probably more likely to be the continue rather than complete. This is Emaneska by Ben Galley. So I've read book 1, which is The Written. I've got book 2 up next, which is Pale Kings, and then I've got Dead Stars, which is split into part 1 and part 2. So 3 books to read for this one. However, it is one that I'm doing on audio, and again one that I've really enjoyed the narration for book 1. So maybe it will be one that I can continue with and actually finish. We shall see. And then the last of the series that's on my list to continue and or finish, it's kind of, I can treat this one as being finished even though it's not actually a finish, but for what's available right at the moment, certainly. I've got the Stormlight Archive, so for this one I've got 4 big chunky books. So I've got part 1 and part 2 of Oathbringer coming up first, but I'll probably do the graphic audio for this because I had a great time on that with book 2, which was Words of Radiance. So otherwise that's a really big chunky thing to read, and if I just pop those down, I've also then got part 1, I think this is 2, and part 2, although the book is for part 1, of Rhythm of War. So that's some great planning there. I should have put those the other way around, but again a really big chunky thing, which is why they've been split up into 2 in the UK paperbacks. So again, I had a good time with these. It took me so long to get to book 2. I'm not going to wait quite as long to get to book 3 and hopefully book 4 as well. So for the next part of the list, I'll go to the new releases that I want to get to, because these are all book 2 or beyond in series, so they are also continuations for me. So first of all, this is going to be a tough one to get review copies or to get reviews out sort of as the books are released, because although some of the dates aren't firm, they're not set in stone as yet, things may change with them. If not though, the dates that I've got at the moment put all of these in January to February, so they're quite chunky books for the most part as well, so that will be a struggle with some of the other reading that I've got planned in around then. So we'll see how it goes and when I get to read them, but the important thing is I want to read them regardless of when it is. So the first of these ones, and I'm not going to cover the dates in case they do change, but I got Of War and Ruin by Ryan Kyle, book 3 of the Bound and the Broken. So I've spoken about this series a lot on the channel because it's one of my favourite, certainly that I've picked up in recent years, but when the series is finished, unless things drastically change, it's going to be in a nice high position in my favourite series of all time. That is how much I'm liking this series, and long may it continue. I've then got book 2 in the Eelborn Saga by Daniel D. Jackson. This one is Age of All Sin, and although there's only one book so far, I really enjoyed it. It was very different for me, but I really got on with all the different varied aspects of it. So I'm hoping to get a nice continuation of that with this book. It's a very different style in terms of the covers, so it'll be kind of weird having the 2 books side by side. They won't look like they're part of the same series perhaps, but what's important obviously is what's inside the book, and I'm again hoping to really enjoy this one as I did with book 1. Then we've got The Shadowgate by L.L. McRae, and this is book 2 of Dragon Spirit. So I had a great time with both the novella, The Citrian Key, and also book 1, The Iron Crown, for this series, and I can't wait to continue and see what happens next in this particular world. It's such a nice bit of world building that we got in the Iron Crown. I do like the idea of the dragon spirits, and it was a very interesting story with some beautiful scenes that I remember reading, so can't wait to get to this one. I'm not sure when it's going to be out because this is one of the ones that's got very much a kind of flexible date, but I'll be looking to get to it as soon as I can once it does come out. And then we have the beautifully covered book 2 in the Ashes of Averin by Thiago Abdallah. This one is A Shade of Madness, and I really did enjoy this book. Although I didn't have the best of times with a lot of the book, it really ramped up at the end, and I loved the direction of where it looks like it's going to be going. So I can't wait to get into this world, because I think now I've got book 1 out of the way, and also the what turned out to be the prequel novella, A Prelude to Ashes, I think I'm going to have a much better time with book 2, A Shade of Madness, and I can't wait to find out if that's the case. And then the last of the new releases that I've put on my list is book 2 of the Darkwater Legacy by Chris Wooding. This is the sequel to The Ember Blade, and it's the Shadow Casket. Now this one is one of the ones that is a bit more firm in my plans, because I do already have a digital arc of this book, so I'm planning to read this one in January, but we'll see how it goes and see which other of the titles come up and if any of them take precedence. But I had a great time with The Ember Blade, and I'm hoping obviously for that to continue with book 2, The Shadow Casket. And then we get into the series that I want to be starting, and this is a predominantly but not exclusively physical list, so this could essentially be looked at as my physical TBR, although not all of the books fall into that. So first of all, we have down the side of me Articles of Faith by David Ragg, which starts out with the Black Hawks. So I've had this one on my shelf for a while. It was a gift from my friend Nina, and we're looking forward to reading this one in 2023. I've heard such good things about it. I'm hoping that I'll really get on with it, because there are similar titles that often get kind of lumped with it in terms of style, but I didn't really get on with. But it's a different author, it's a different theme, different story, and I'm hoping for me to have a different outcome as well and to really enjoy this one. Then we have the one which I will do digitally, because this is one that I don't have a physical copy of it, and this is The Legacy of the Mercenary Kings by Nick Martell, which starts off with The Kingdom of Liars. And I know my friend Terry has really enjoyed the start of this series, so I'm looking forward to getting into it. It's been on my list for quite a while, but I haven't got around to it as yet, so I'm going to make the time to start this one in 2023. Next up we have The Dragons of Terror by Brian Naslund, which starts off with Blood of an Exile, and I'm so happy for many reasons to live in the UK, but the cover is one of those, because the US cover of this is awful pretty much. So with this one, again, it's one that I've had on my shelf for a while, and I'm looking forward to starting it. There's a couple of these, and this one is amongst them, that I may take a look at the audio, because they are available for many of these titles, but we'll see how that goes. One of the ones which I probably will be tempted to do on audio just because of the size of it is the Legacy Trilogy by Matthew Ward. So we start off with Legacy of Ash, which is a big beastie, and my friend Cassidy has suggested the audio for this one for a couple of different reasons, and I'm pretty sure I might be taking her up on that. We've got a good, it's not too bad, it's just less than 800 pages within that, but it is quite thick pages, so it's quite a physical beast in the hand. I don't really set myself too much sci-fi in my planning, because my main jam is fantasy, but there is one for this list, and that is The Final Architecture by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So I've got Shards of Earth to start that one off, and this is one that Nina and myself are looking to buddy read, because we did tentatively plan to do so in 2022, so I'm sure we'll read it together in 2023. I do love a bit of Adrian Tchaikovsky, and although his sci-fi has been a bit hit and miss with me, I will be honest, I'm looking forward to this one and seeing what it gives us. And then the last one in the series that I want to start, we've got The Lotlands by Jonathan French, which starts off with The Grey Bastard. So this, again, is one I've had on my shelf for a little while, and I'm finally making the time for it in 2023. I've heard some good and some also not so good about this, but it's one that I think should suit my tastes, so I'm looking forward to finding out if that's the case. So there we go, lots to look forward to, and you'll be seeing various reviews and wrap-ups of these titles hopefully over the next 12 months or so. How many of them will I get to? I don't know. What else will I get to on top of them? Again, I don't know. But it's a nice ambitious set of goals for me, and if I'm to complete everything that's within this list, so all the titles that I've covered today plus the 10 in my self-published as well, that gives me 35 titles, which is nearly half what I read in total in 2022, although at the time of filming 2022 isn't quite over, so that number is also increasing. but it does make it for a nice ambitious set of goals, and I'm really excited to see how I get on with it. Let me know in the comments down below what your goals are and what you're looking forward to. What are you excited for me to read out of the books I've shown you today? As usual, while you're down there, you can find all my social media and support channel links below this video, including my book club Discord and my Patreon. We'd love to see you there if it's something that interests you. I'll hopefully see you in the next video sometime soon, but until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.